The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
This is Africa Diaspora Connect.
Join us as we take the journey from the motherland to America.
We share our experiences and learn from them.
Here is our host, Kibathi
Welcome to another episode of the Africa Diaspora Connect. I'm your host, Kibathi Gitau. Now, today I'm going to take you on a journey that's going to be a bit of an emotional roller coaster for the most part. We are going to be touching on a subject that is dark, that is quite somber, a subject that is rarely brought to surface. And with me today, I have women of valor, women of courage, who are willing to take us on a journey in their life that's been tough. On my left, she's no stranger to the Africa Diaspora Connect. I have my favorite big sister, Mrs. Sarah Kagacha. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So good to see you again.
Thank you.
Excellent. On Zoom Live, I got my West Coast counterparts. Isabella Gitau. Isabella is going to come in here as a social worker. She's going to help us navigate this journey and give us her insights in her profession as to, things that we encounter. Coming in from UK, all the way from the United Kingdom, a very close friend of Sarah's. I got Miss Jane. Jane, welcome to the Africa Diaspora Connect. Jane will also share her journey in this avenue, in this journey we're going to partake together. So ladies, all of you, welcome once again to the Africa Diaspora Connect. Viewers, just so bear with us on this one. This may be a bit emotional, so just work with us. I'm going to start with Isabella. I want you to pretty much be the centerfold on this one and really offer your insights. I want to ask you, how would you define grief? What is grief? Like what? And this is the thing. Go ahead. What is grief? And I'll lead on to the next question. Go ahead. What is grief?
So before that, I want to thank you so very much,
Mr.
Kibathi, for inviting me. I really appreciate that. I want to thank and also honor these women who have gone through a lot and they can still stand and say, we can do this. And this is very encouraging even to those women and men out there who are like, how can I even see tomorrow? Why should I even live? And this should be a good, they should be a good mentor and encouragers, and I honor you for that.
Thank you.
So now I want to define a grief. Grief is something, this heavy thing, something that comes because of losing somebody. And this is somebody we're talking about, a parent, a child, a husband, a friend, and even somebody who you feel that this person, even a neighbor, can bring grief, or losing something of value. Grief does not only come because we love somebody, but also something of value. I can give you an example as well. You had this beautiful sport car, you had this beautiful car, and now it's no more. Something happened and it's all burned out and it's all gone, and it can bring you grief. So grief comes because of losing somebody.
It's an emptiness. So it sounds like an emptiness.
Yes. That feeling that makes you feel that I don't even want to live. That feeling that makes you think, now everything that I own is gone.
Understood.
Despite the fact that it's only one person who has left. But you feel that even if you have so much money in the bank, you have so many houses, without that one person, everything else doesn't matter. That's called.
Great introduction. There's if you lose a husband, they call you a widow. If you lose a wife, the term is a widower. There is no coined term in the English dictionary that's been coined to date. If you ever encounter the loss of a child. They call it the ultimate. The ultimate. I mean, for those of us who are fathers, for those of us who are mothers, just that thought in of itself, it's inconceivable. I have my sister next to me today, who actually got me to put together this show. I've been waiting for her for almost 8 months, since July. And I've always known at some point she will come in. And she always told me, Kibathi, when I'm ready, I'll come. When I'm ready, I'll come. Within our society of late, we've had a lot of tragedies, and we've lost a lot of our children. A lot. And Sarah has felt it's time for her to come and open up, and hopefully her message will be able to shed some strength, some light, and maybe coping mechanisms. Thank you so much, Sarah. Tell us why you're here today and what really prompted you. I just gave you an intro, and what really made you want to do this show today.
Okay. Thank you so much for Jane, Isabella, and you for hosting us. The reason why I decided to ask you whether we could do the show dealing with grief after the loss of a loved one is because I have been through it. I have walked that walk. I know it very well. And I figured during this time of COVID, we are having so many deaths. People are dying. And before we even pay attention to the one person who has lost a loved one, another one dies and we turn our attention to that one. And before we, our attention is focused on who is dying currently. And so there are so many people who are in their homes. And grief is so bad, as our sister Isabella explained it. Grief is this indescribable sorrow and sadness that
I can learn to understand you much better if I can get familiar with the way you talk. I need your permission to help.
Go ahead, my sister.
Yeah.
I can get familiar with the way you talk.
It's that kind of sorrow that is so indescribable. It gets you numb. It is so shocking, especially, for example, in my case, I lost my son who was 26 years old in 2018. And I cannot even describe the feeling because it's so traumatic. You actually develop the post-PTSD. Today, if I see the ambulance and the siren, it haunts me. There was a time a while back because he fell from 4th floor, I would count how many floors in every tall building I'll come across. So I am thinking there's somebody who is in this situation whereby they don't know how to redeem themselves out. Over the time, I have been able to seek for professional help. And through the professional help, I got better. And many people don't know this because after the funeral and everything else, everybody else goes to their home. They go back to their schedules.
Exactly.
And you are left. I remember this one time when you were left after everything was done. It was me and my husband and my kids in the house. All of us are dealing with our grief in different ways. So I was in the dining room, my husband was in the living room, and the kids were upstairs. And immediately after we buried our son, I remember, because I was only 2 months away from graduating, I went back to school. My son was really big on my school and would call me every day to check on how I was doing in my school. And I figured, let me just go back to school and do this one for him and for myself. So I went back to school. And this particular day I'm talking about, we had woken up. We were still at home. We hadn't gone back to our schedules. And I'm in the dining room. I had this big project in front of me, and I had to stick some pictures and some messages on them because it was a presentation. And my husband was on the other side, and I can only imagine what he was going through because I imagined he was in deep, deep sorrow. And I can tell you every piece of what I put in that the box that I was sticking stuff for, had a drop of my tears. I cried until I felt a loneliness. I felt a feeling of hopelessness. It's easy to sink in a depression, especially after the funeral, because everybody goes back to their routine. They go back to whatever they do, and then you're left by yourselves. That's when you start now knowing that the person is really gone. Before, because people are around the house, your sisters are there, your friends are there, they're comforting you. You are able to handle it at that time. But immediately they leave and go back to their schedules. I'm telling you, it is tough. That is when I cried. That is when I felt like I was going mental. And by April, the month of April, May, I felt like, one thing is that I couldn't sleep. And when you're not sleeping, there's a lot that is going on in your head.
Absolutely.
And when you wake up during the day, during the day, you're not also sleeping. So I wasn't sleeping at night. I wasn't sleeping during the day. And if I'm sleeping, it's a little nap. And so I figured, I think I am going to go mental here. So I decided to go to my PCP, my doctor. And initially at school, they had assigned me to a professional counselor, but everybody is different. When I went in there, and I just told that the person, the counselor, a little bit of my story, she took it from there, and she talked and talked and talked and talked. I was feeling like telling her, can you please stop, because I want to leave.
She made you uncomfortable?
She talked too much, that it was too much in my head. What you should do for a person who has lost a loved one, give them a chance to talk. Give them time to tell you
to express themselves.
To express themselves, to empty themselves, and you'll be able to handle the bits and pieces they are telling you. But when you go and take it and just fly with it and do or say whatever you think, I felt very uncomfortable, and I felt like I didn't need that kind of a person in my life. So I went to my doctor. And when I went to my doctor, and when I got too much, just tell me so that I can.
No, this is all important, and the thing is, you're just opening up. Hold that thought, Jane. I think you have lost a sibling as well.
Yeah.
You've lost a sibling, and how? Tell us a little bit. How long did you have your sibling in your? How long did you have each other in your lives?
Well, she was our firstborn, and I'm the thirdborn, and. To make it worse, she just finished, graduated from nursing, started a new job, 1 month to getting married, and suddenly she was electrocuted.
She was electrocuted?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I didn't get to know until coming home for the weekend from where I was working, and I had some friends with me, and then I thought, what's that tent doing outside our home? You know how people put up tents?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's that? In my mind, I'm like, must be to do with the wedding.
She was getting married in a month?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just thought it's to do with the wedding. Then when I got to the gate, somebody said, Holesan, I'm really sorry. And I thought, about what? So I got the message really quick. I just started looking around, just a way of eliminating. Okay, where is my brother? Where is my mom? Where is my dad? Where is my other sister? I just looking for who is missing, and eventually it worked out for me. Master is the one missing.
Process of elimination, that's what you used.
So the shock, and then I remember going to my mom's bedroom, and I found a notice, a write-up. You know the KBC, how used to write up notice to send to the media.
Okay.
And then this is to announce death has occurred of, and I thought, what? How? Why? You know, the shock is paralyzing.
Wow.
That's true.
Wow. Isabella, so we're hearing two different versions here. These were both sudden, okay? And they both got a call. They both walked into something. what are the phases of grief? Are there some phases of grief that happen? Is there any sequence when it comes to grief?
Yes, yes, and I would really want to, and I know it's past, but I just wanna, my heart goes to you guys because it is. You cannot only imagine. I can only imagine Jane in her mind trying to eliminate, and at the same time, you're like, no, I don't want to them. I can't let them go. Eliminating but bringing them back until to a point you come to realization that this is true. So there are stages of grief. But before I go there,
Okay.
I want to talk about what Ms. Kagacha said. When I was working in hospice, there's a journey. We work with people. I know there's been so much grief and so much death, but I want to encourage our Kenyan community, that thing of leaving the day that the funeral happens and you are out. You are leaving those people torn and really torn. You are tired, you're making them even feel worse than before, because this is where now the grief starts. When everybody is at home, we are all carrying a little bit of peace. We are, oh yeah, I'm sorry. So we are kind of sharing. But the moment you leave, the moment now the grief hits. So what I want to say to our Kenyan community and everybody out there is that it is very important with hospice. Many of these agencies, what they do, they will work with you 13 more months or 1 year plus. And they want to work each and every day. They have groups that they'll bring people once a week so that you can keep on sharing. And some people go 6 months and they're like, now I'm able to make another step, I can go. Some people go all the 13 months and still very, very grieved.
So
it's
what are you recommending? What are you recommending? Like in Sarah's case, so or in Jane's case, what are you recommending? What can we do better?
What I'm recommending, and I tried, I can remember when I was doing my community macro project, I tried to sell this idea to our group that it is very important that we have, even if it's 2 people or 3 people, that will remain behind. When everybody else goes, have 2 people. And they can identify themselves, like Sarah can say, so-and-so is my friend. Can you really work with me? Or now that we know, we're getting to know, a team of people can bring themselves together and say, you know what, we're not leaving Sarah by herself. We're going to work with her for a little bit. Because now the moment is so, I can only imagine Sarah in her own room, the husband in there, the 6 children up there, and nobody to tell them we can do it. So everybody is like, I think it's all gone. So what I'm encouraging, the idea I'm trying to sell is that let's have groups. We have so many groups. We have the welfare groups. We have Chama group. Can we have a group that will always, that group, let it be known that we have a group when somebody is gone, that group will go to that home. So that's the idea I'm trying to sell.
Okay.
And if Kibathi, however we can do it, if we can create that group. We have so many welfare groups. Maziko, funeral groups. We have all those groups, but we don't have a group that works with the people who have been left alone, the survivors. And that, as I said, grief starts at that moment when everybody else is out. So now, grief has a pattern. It has a pattern that it follows. It just don't happen that day and it's all gone. The first thing, as everybody is saying here, is the shock. That shock, you feel numb, you feel, you are on denial. The first thing is denial. We call it denial. Denial is a defense mechanism. And it is a good defense mechanism or mature defense mechanism at the beginning, but it can be immature defense mechanism as times goes by. So what happens with denial, it acts like a cushion. I want you to imagine when you are falling, because when you hear the news of death, you're definitely gonna fall, whether you like it or not. No matter how strong you are, your child is gone. That's gonna break you into pieces, right or wrong, right? So what happens, denial kicks in and it comes and acts as a cushion. When you're about to land on the floor, it kind of holds you. So when you fall down, you don't hurt yourself. I want to think about how many people we have had, if they were told, oh, so-and-so have passed away. And that moment they fell And when the funeral was happening, they were in hospital. Why? Because the defense mechanism denial did not kick in. But what happens, denial shouldn't last for long. Because if you remain in denial, now you're starting to live in a different world. It did not happen, and so you will not deal with it. So it is supposed to be there for a while, depending on people, depending on personality.
So denial is one.
Denial is one.
Okay.
So when we go to the next one, it's called anger. Anger now comes in. When denial goes away, anger comes in. I'm very angry. So like Jane says, the son fell from the 4th floor. So where was that?
Sarah, yeah.
Why didn't, yes,
Yeah.
you know, you're very angry. As a mother, I was supposed to protect my son. Why didn't I protect? And so that now starts hitting you back.
And I'm sure you're all angry at God as well, maybe at some point.
Oh, yes. I must say that I am a preacher of the gospel. I sing praise and worship. I have been in fellowships and everything else. I've been doing things for God. And I remember when I got the news that my son had passed away, the following day was on a Saturday, and I was in my room. And I remember closing the doors, and I lifted up my hands and I said, God, where were you when this happened? I said, God, you know I have been doing this, I've been doing that for you. Why did you let this happen? Couldn't you have sent angels to hold my son and not let him fall?
Or maybe, or take me instead.
Yes, and again, you know, in death, we are not supposed to bury our sons.
No.
Our sons are supposed to bury us.
Absolutely.
And that is why there's no name when a parent loses a child, because it's too painful. You'll be able to probably move on after a certain period of time, but you can never forget.
So anger, my sister, anger is number 2. All right.
So anger is number 2. Then we have bargaining. And I think what Sarah was also doing at that point was like, God, why didn't you take me instead? Or where were you, God? You're kind of bargaining. And then at that time, it's like, what else didn't I do for my son? You know, you start counting the things that you could have done even before. And you're like, maybe I was supposed to take him to university, or maybe I was supposed to do this, or maybe he asked me for something and I didn't do. So you're kind of now starting to bargain. Then if that stage goes away, the other stage that comes, and this is a stage that really hits many people, and they kind of remain there, it's called depression. I mean, we tell people this is not clinical depression. This is not a major depressive disorder. It is a disorder. It is depression that comes because of grief. And it's supposed, as you continue healing, it's supposed to go. But if that depression runs for 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks, now you can be diagnosed with depression, major depression. So what we do, most of the time, when somebody is in that stage, and you go to hospital, a good doctor will not really even medicate you, because medicating will mean now they started bothering or interfering with the process. They let you heal. What they need to do, or what we need to do, as I said earlier, is to have somebody there. You know, embrace these people, encourage them, be there for them. Sarah said a counselor talked and talked and talked.
Yeah.
So just be there to listen.
Listen.
Because what they are doing when they are talking, they are taking it out.
Yeah.
Some people will write notes, just write things that you could have written to your son, just to make sure that it comes out. And that's why I'm going back to that, Kibathi, that we need to have such thing. We really do. More especially with this grief, we have to.
We're hearing it.
Now, the last one is called acceptance. And acceptance is when you have gone through.
You come to terms.
Now you have come into terms.
Okay.
My son went. And so now what happens? Now you start the journey of healing. This is where now I want to heal. That's why Sarah is going to look for a counselor, because now that's the reality. My son is not there. Now I want to heal. Why? Because life has to continue. You're still there. And so if you remain in that mood, in that, in that circle of depression, anger, it can keep on coming back to and fro. And it's not a good feeling. And so when you're in that situation, you're not even going to school. You don't feel like doing anything else. So that's why now acceptance is important, so that you start the journey of healing.
Jane, did you ever come to terms with the passing of your sister, the sudden passing of your sister? And if you did, how long did it take? And if not, what are you doing to cope?
I think it took many, many years because also back in Kenya, this was 92.
Okay.
But back in Kenya, I don't think the culture where people can just talk and bring it out, as a social worker is saying, was not very, very encouraged, especially for children.
It's 22
Everyone
hours.
pays attention to maybe the parents. But the only person I ever remember talking to us was to rebuke us, to tell us off for crying. And it was a lady from the neighbor who said, "You must stop crying. Did you want her to remain here?" And it's that many years, but I have never forgotten her. Because I felt so angry. I thought, where did you want her to go?
Wow.
Apart from that one, I don't remember anyone else telling me talk, bring it out or anything. So it took a very, very long time.
Understood.
It's not a subject we sat at the table and talked as a family either. Everyone deals with it their own way. And, it's wherever you go, whatever happens, but finally, by God's grace, yours seems to have come to some sort of peace.
Yeah, my sister Sarah wants to say something here. Go ahead. Yep.
Thank you so much, Jane, for that input of the person who said stuff to you that you still remember. I remember in 2013, I lost my dad. And somebody came and gave me a warm hug and said to me, "How old was your dad?" And I said, 77. And he says to me, "Oh, he had lived for a long time." To me, my dad, I don't see my dad as old. I know I have walked with my dad a journey since I was a little girl, when I was with him, and, we have gone through a journey. So I'm not seeing a 77-year-old man. No. He is my daddy. And I wanted to say, because this is going to be watched by many people, that be careful of what you tell somebody when they have lost a loved one.
They never forget.
In fact, they will never forget. In fact, you better give them a hug and stay silent. Or give them a hug and tell them, you and your family, you are in my prayers and thoughts. That's enough.
Africa Diaspora Connect, we're learning how to cope with grief, and we're going to have a second show going on this. Before we wind down this one, I have a question. And I'm going to come back to you, Sarah, my sister here. And then I would like Isabella to pitch in. We only have a few minutes here. I've heard stories, especially in the loss of a child, where marriages break. The marriages crumble. You were once in love, and something happens. I don't know what it is, or that take. Sarah, do you have any insights as to how it happened? Or how has your marriage been able to stick the way you have? In a couple of minutes, because we're almost winding down. Okay,
and a marriage that was shaky before the death will be overshaken when the death happens.
So you think it was previous? So it didn't happen because
it was shaky before. It can be shaken by the death, or probably the death can hold them together because they are looking for each other's company and each other's comfort. Yeah, it can go either way, but most likely they will end up splitting. The other thing is that you end up, there is an emotional detachment for a certain period of time. There is an emotional detachment. You feel like this one is dealing with your emotions in a different way.
You're numb.
Yeah, and the other one is dealing with the emotion in a different way. Yeah. So that is why you find my husband is in the living room and I'm in the dining room, because he wants to deal with it in his own way, and I want to deal with it in my own way. If it goes further, I was reading a story the other day, and it was a couple that had lost a child, and the wife decided to be sleeping in her own bed, and the husband went to sleep in his own bed. So what happened was that their sexual life stopped completely because emotions are gone. There's nothing going
Numbness,
on. Yeah. And if this child that is gone was the glue to your relationship, then the cookie will just crumble and everything will just,
understood.
Yeah.
In a minute, what would you say to that, Bella? Oh, I think, go ahead.
Much research of recent, but a while ago, 2016, was about 16% of marriages would break out of that. And the reason being, as I said, the parents don't see any reason for them to leave. And so when you do not, as a person, see the reason for you to be alive, anything else doesn't matter. And so the marriage is not one of the things that you pay attention to. Work is not something that you pay attention to. Just sleeping maybe could be, or, something like that. That's the reason that people will go there. And as our sister said, if the marriage was taken already, so this is like engineering the fire. And the other thing I also want to mention, besides the people coming together, people who have lost dear ones, I would encourage them to have groups. We call them self-help groups. And when we work with people who have lost their dear ones, they meet in those self-help groups. And you as a counselor or you as a person, just go there, let them talk. I was very quick, Mr. Kibathi, I'll say this. My first experience with people who are grieving was 4 parents who their children were shot. And they were shot dead. And so these people, they were very, very angry. They were in pain. And I would go there as a person helping them and just sit there, I'll let them cry. And within a span of 8 weeks, by the end of 8 weeks, you see people who are turning around. And so just go there, be there, sit there, say nothing.
Self-help, got it.
Self-help group.
So what I'd like to do is this. We're going to have a part 2 to this, Africa Diaspora Connect. There's a lot to be discussed. And tune in next week because this show must go on, part 2. And when we start that show next week, on our next episode, I'd like to ask some of those questions that pertain to women who give birth to a stillborn child and understand what goes through that mechanism. We're going to talk about children who have lost parents as a young child. How do children cope with death? How does a child cope with the death of a sibling? How does a child cope with the death of a parent? Africa Diaspora Connect. We need to subscribe to this show. This is what's going on right now. Like this, share it, make some comments, and let's give kudos to these amazing mothers, these amazing ladies. Yeah. We're coming at you. I'm always your host, Kibathi Gitau. Peace out.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.